Probably a bit of both. In large part, it was a desire to be kind of self-employed. I've felt very fulfilled once I got into that position.
Yes, and you've obviously stayed extremely hands-on in terms of the product development and the nutrition side of things. So that presumably is a conscious choice because that's what you love.
Well, very much so, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of companies are run by accountants these days. Our company is run by a nutritionist, which is, seems obvious because we're an animal nutrition company, but it's very often not the case. We're very passionate about making a difference, helping our customers to improve what they're doing at a technical level. And we hope that that generates loyalty, which demonstrably it has.
It has done. And do you work with a cooperative of local farmers? Do you organise haulage or do they have to arrange delivery?
The supply chain is quite key, actually. One of the idiosyncrasies of our particular method of crushing and particularly of filtration is that we have to have the seed at a very consistent moisture content. And so we got in touch with a local cooperative called Aberdeen Grain, which has a large store about 6 miles away from here. They have approximately 42 or 43 farmers who store their oilseed rape, around about 6,000 or 7,000 tonnes that they store there. And so we got a secure store of seed which is 6 miles away, which is grown in about a 10 or 15 mile radius of the store. So it's like probably the shortest supply chain you can ever imagine.
Fantastic story, isn't it?
Compared to hauling oil from the other end of the UK. But I probably would stress that our product is not more expensive than soya. Soya being the major protein used worldwide tends to be the benchmark price for protein. So our product has to reflect that value. The major benefit, though, in using NEOLac, you not only can replace the soya that people are using on a kilo for kilo basis, but you also almost get free of charge 120 grams of protected fat or oil. Protected fat is also an important ingredient in dairy rations, particularly for cows in early lactation where they're in an energy deficit. And traditionally, they have used palm fat. And as we know, that is also a major no-no because it tends to be grown in tropical regions where they're removing natural rainforest to grow ever-increasing amounts of palm fat. Much more than soya, the supermarkets and the retailers are putting pressure on their supply chains to remove palm fat from not only from animal feeds but also from food products as well.
I think what I also love about it is that it's a story of the Scottish farming industry working together as well. You're working with a cooperative of arable farmers to produce a product that's perfect for the dairy sector.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that we really like about it. I have to say it's a really positive story, not only for the northeast of Scotland, but for the wider Scottish market. We just hope that people will recognise that and support us.
But Ed's well aware that hope is not enough for farmers to change their tried and tested routines, especially when working to tight margins. No, evidence is what's required. So Ed worked with Kerry Cartwright, a final year honours student from SRUC, Scotland's Rural College, to carry out a rigorous trial, with some of the cattle getting fed NEOLac and others getting traditional soya-based feed.
It was over a long period of time where we did a crossover trial from the soya diet to the rape diet and back onto the soya diet. Yeah, it's really good to have those numbers because we're not into doing things on an anecdotal basis either.
Absolutely.
It's very important for us to have the confidence to take this out to the marketplace. The college themselves were very much involved in the scientific design of it. The statistics have been really thoroughly interrogated. The data is irrefutable.
The researcher Kerry Cartwright, who led on the trials, unfortunately too busy to speak to us in this episode, but we felt she definitely deserved a name check as she's such a vital part of the NEOLac story. However, while we'll have to catch up with Kerry on another occasion, the last part of this edition of OnFARM Scotland takes us to the farm where the trial took place. Dairy farmer Bruce Mackie agreed to test out NEOLac on his dairy herd near Peterhead. The results were very positive, and it's fair to say he's never looked back. We are at Middleton of Rora, which is Rora Dairies, and they produce an extremely delicious yoghurt that I think if you're lucky you'll find it in Morrison's and a number of other independent outlets. The most important thing is that they feed their cows NEOLac. So thank you very much for having us.
How are you doing?
Sorry we're a little bit later than planned, but we got really carried away. We had a fascinating time at the plant. Ed and Bruce have known each other for a long time, I think, so it would be great to hear them chatting about the working relationship that they've now formed. So Bruce, we're standing here next to cow number 2458, and you've got some wonderfully smelling silage in your hand. Can you explain how that forms part of the diet?
Yes, silage, to people that aren't farmers about it, we harvest grass and we compress it in a big pit and add a bacteria to it so it then pickles itself. So it's effectively like preserving something in vinegar. So that gives us feed throughout the year for the cows and able to preserve some of that spring freshness of the grass. What we're looking at now is what we call a partial mixed ration, a PMR, which we feed to the cows along the feed phase. In addition to the silage, we've added draff, which is a distillery byproduct, and also to that we've added some barley that we've grown on the farm, some minerals and vitamins supplied by Ed, and the NEOLac itself. So that's all fed in a single meal package there to the cows.
So Bruce, we're in the robotic parlour at the moment. We've got a little face peeping in. She might be about to come in and get milked. Here we go.
Now, here we go. So the robot's identified the cow, and the first thing it does is it washes each individual teat twice. What we're doing here is we're watching two counter-rotating, so circular brushes going around and cleaning each teat in turn. So just going around there. The cows are bedded on sand, and I think that's part of the thing, keeping the udder really clean, and that greatly helps. Now the brushes have gone to the side. We're now watching a little red line of a laser just going across the udder at the moment and finding the teats. So the robots run 24 hours a day, or nearly that. They wash themselves 3 times within that period. But other than that, the cows have sort of free access to come in day and night. And now 3 out of the 4 teats are now connected and the cow is milking.
And how long would she normally be there each time she came in?
Could be here about 5 minutes.
She certainly looks extremely content.
This system depends on the cows coming in themselves, and if they weren't content, they wouldn't come in, would be the reality.
You produce yoghurt from this milk, as we've mentioned. Who's the biggest customer of that yoghurt?
We have a number of different customers. Furthest north is the Northlink ferries that go from Aberdeen to Orkney and Shetland, and we have a few distributors who take it down south. Farm shops and delis are a big market.
Yes. And would you say that those customers are showing an increased interest in your sustainability and your carbon footprint, and therefore the inputs on this farm?
We're beginning to see more and more of that. I mean, the first thing is you've got to produce a delicious product.
Yes, of course, yeah.
But then those other things become more important. That's the exciting thing is that, we're a new brand. So, those are the things that we can be because we're new. We haven't any inherited baggage on the back of there.
Forge your own path.
But also, the yogurt sector is quite a crowded one. And, how do you differentiate yourself? And part of that thing about being open and showing people their cows and welcoming people on farm. And not only just to see the cows, but in terms of the wildlife and the conservation measures we do, it's all part of that package, and you get that free with every pot of yoghurt.
Absolutely.
Let's go up onto the gantry overlooking the dairy.
I've never actually done this on a dairy farm before in terms of standing on an elevated platform. So we've got an overview of more than 200 animals, some of whom are lying down looking very relaxed, some of whom are queuing to get into the robotic milking parlour. It must be quite useful, this, Bruce, to get a clear sight of exactly what's going on and who's doing what. Is that why it's here?
Partly. We're standing on top of one of the robots at the moment on a platform here with our office just next door. It's certainly been an advantage in moving into a purpose-built building with all our milking cows under one roof. Previously, when my father expanded the herd, it was through a range of traditional buildings, and he would have filled in the gaps between buildings with other ones. But it allowed for lots of little dark holes for cows to hide and not so easily seen. The history of this shed is that we built it about 5 years ago with advice from Vetvice, a Dutch cow welfare consultants who have a program called Cow Signals. So Cow Signals was developed by Joop Driessen and Jan Hulsen, these two Dutch vets who thought that they were going as vets to too many farms where they were seeing sick cows, and what they really wanted to do was to get to be in sort of the forefront of preventative medicine, really, I suppose. You created an environment and you taught farmers how to look at cows before they became ill rather than afterwards. The first time I heard of Cow Signals, I thought it was a little bit kind of airy-fairy, and I must admit, subsequent to that, I've become a bit of a convert to the whole thing. But one of the things that they felt was that too many sheds were being built by people who knew about concrete and steel and not enough about cows. So they hired 2 more vets just to do building design for dairies. And so we got one of them over here, and we looked at different designs and such like. What we have here is a Cow Signals design shed. And
the roof itself is something that's quite unusual. I can best describe it as a sort of tiered roof, obviously with ventilation at each level, but it is quite unusual.
Yes, part of the discussion of the sort of evolution of the design of the shed was a discussion with Jamie Robertson at Aberdeen University. He said it was very difficult to get enough ventilation across a shed that was 40 metres wide, which this one is 41 metres wide. Part of that is to provide a light, airy environment for the cows so to thrive in, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've highlighted, Bruce, a number of the different aspects required to maintain optimal animal health. And of course, one of the most obvious ones is feed. And I know that you were the trial farm for the initial testing of NEOLac. Can you tell us a bit about how you got involved in that and why, what your motivation was?
I think, the motivation was, well, one, at a most basic level, we have a shed here, which is a mirror image on one side and the other. And so it lends itself to doing trial work in it, and very similar cows. And also the robots have so many different parameters that we can measure in terms of weight, in terms of their production and such like. It's a very controlled environment in terms of that, and therefore I thought we could help to provide statistical reliability and such like. And obviously, Norvite's a local company to here, and we're very keen to work with our neighbours and farm together.
We've spoken with Ed about sustainability and the wonderful local supply that he has. All of the oilseed rape for the NEOLac comes from within 15 miles. So there's a hugely strong sustainability story there. Did that factor in to your reasoning as well?
Absolutely. And if you look out of the building here, you can see that we've planted hedges along there. And then as we look down towards the River Yugi in the distance there, you can see little bits of woodland and full of native trees and things. So the environment's very important about what we do here on the farm in terms of environmental improvement and things like creating wildlife corridors so that we can link small areas of habitat to the river. But I think as well as, thinking about the environment on the farm, the environmental impact of how we